All right, good morning, everybody. So we'll talk a little bit more about the daily Jewish devotions. So we mentioned the idea of the importance of davening with a minyan when it's possible. It's not always possible for everybody. Depends where you live. Depends what time the minyan is. Some people are not up that early. Some people have to go to work when it's so late. Like in my community, I have to be at work at 8 o'clock, and work is an hour away. And all right, if I get to work at 8:30, 8:45, not the end of the world, but not much later than that. As long as I stay later as well, obviously. On most days, certain days I can get to work at 1 o'clock, but I have to stay till 9. So, ideally for me, for minyan, if I could work from 10 to 6, that would be the best for me as far as attending minyan. But it is what it is. I have to, I have my obligations. So, it is what it is, like we said. And so, if I can't go to minyan, I still have to daven at home, or at work, or at some point. So let's go through what daily liturgical prayer is in the Jewish world, and why I feel that this practice has helped me in my life. So we can discuss a little bit of that. Now, I got introduced to daily liturgical prayer by my grandfather, Oliver Sholem, by Al Schwartz, who's my grandfather, my mother's father. And he would go to minyan every day. The minyan in the shul where he attended, he passed away 21 years ago. But about 20 years ago. Almost 21, 20 and a half, whatever you want to say. And the shul where he would attend was the Young Israel New Hyde Park. Nice shul, nice little community there. The kind of eastern edge of Queens, just before the border of Nassau County, or you could say, many of the congregants there actually live in Nassau County. Excuse me, just over the border, because it's close enough that you could walk. How did my mother's family wind up there in New Hyde Park? Coming from Borough Park, actually. At that time, the neighborhood of Borough Park where they were living was becoming less and less Jewish, or wasn't Jewish at all, not like it is today. So it's a very different, they live like on Foster Avenue, which is between Flatbush and Borough Park, more or less. And in the early 60s, my mother was 2 or 3 years old. They moved to New Hyde Park, which at the time was a bit of a bigger Jewish community. It's gotten smaller now. Now it's more of an Indian community, an Asian community. Fine, that's just, but they still have, at least the one Orthodox synagogue is the Young Israel. And, my grandparents, they bought the house that was a few blocks away from the shul. And that's something, when you're looking for a community where to live, if you identify with an Orthodox Jewish community, there is a certain positive aspect of living within walking distance to an Orthodox shul, if it's possible. And if it's not, and you're really observant Orthodox, you're just not going to go to synagogue unless you go away for a weekend or something. You're going to lose that aspect of liturgical life, the devotional life of, at the very least, going to Minyan on Shabbos. Some people, they'll have a house where they live all week, and an apartment close to the synagogue just for Shabbos and holidays. More wealthy people might have something like that. If that's your lifestyle, that's a very nice thing to have. But right now, before we get to the Sabbath issue, we want to talk about the daily devotional prayers, which are 3 times a day. And the afternoon and evening services are relatively brief. And the morning service can take a little bit more time. But still, the basics of what you have to say and what are traditionally said are not necessarily... You don't necessarily have to do everything that's typically done. Depends on where you're holding, what kind of... and what your own personal devotional life is. Certain people are more contemplative and other people are more recitative, I guess. And this is something I struggle with personally, because I like to say everything. I don't like to skip anything. Which means if I'm in a rush, I'm going to just say everything really fast, which is wrong. I admit it's wrong. This is Es chatoy ani mazkir hayom, like it says in Genesis. I'm remembering my sins today, my failings, my faults in life, which is part of being human, part of the human condition, and part of the way that we really can build a relationship with God is by recognizing our own faultiness, our own imperfections in comparison to the greatness and perfection of God. And by balancing those two ideas, we can come to realization. And so the devotional life is something that we can take with us surprised by this right now. I'm not planning anything. The devotional life is something we can take with us throughout our day and throughout our life. The experience of the devotional life, whatever your tradition is, same thing. Like I mentioned in yesterday's video, or was it 2 days ago, I don't remember, of how the Catholics have a regular religious Catholic will go to church every Sunday, but certain people who are looking for more spirituality might take time every day to attend Mass, to celebrate Mass. Same thing in Islam. The devotions are supposed to be to pray 5 times a day. Does everyone do it? No. Some people, might combine 2 of the prayers together, so it comes to only very similar to the Jewish way of 3 times a day, which really, if you look at how, for convenience sake, many Jewish synagogues conduct themselves, it comes to 2 trips to the synagogue a day. So similarly, and we're saying 3 prayers, and sometimes 4 prayers in those 2 trips. And similarly, some Muslims, they will combine 2 of the prayers together, so they're only taking 3 times out of their day to recite these 5 prayers. And similarly, you have certain people who only come to Juma on Friday, certain people who maybe during Ramadan, now it's Ramadan, they pray 5 times a day, but only during Ramadan, and then the rest of the year maybe they only go to Juma. Things like this, they occur in every religion and in every tradition, in every culture, of how you have some people who are more dedicated and some people, excuse me, who don't devote as much time to devotional life. But when they do, see, there's a passage in Hosea. I remember Rabbi Moshe Weinberger explaining this in the Navi Hosea. In the Bible it says, "Ve'eya katal Yisrael," that God says, "I will be like dew to Israel." D-E-W, dew. And if you go out in the morning and you're wearing socks and no shoes, your socks are going to get all wet when you step on the grass because of the dew. And they're like, "Where's this water coming from? You didn't hear it rain last night, you didn't." So what's this? What's this all about? And we know that that's dew. We pray for dew and we pray for rain in our liturgy. So, excuse me. So what's this whole story of dew, and what does it teach us? I'm not talking about scientifically what is dew. I'm saying, what lesson do we learn from dew as opposed to rain? And why does God say that I will be like dew instead of being like rain? And so the Midrash says that Midrash says that the Jewish people ask God, "Be like rain. We don't need you all the time, but when we need you, we want to feel you," right? And God said, "No, I'm going to be like dew. I'm going to be there all the time, and you're not going to feel it, but I'll be there and all the time." And so too, certain people in their religious life, they, you have just like you have the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur and maybe Pesach and Hanukkah Jews. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur in synagogue, Pesach and Hanukkah in the home, perhaps. You have the, Christmas and Easter Christians. You have the Ramadan Muslims, right? Who, they're basically, they want their relationship with God to be like rain, right? That it's not all the time, and when it is, you're going to feel it. You're going to experience it. It's going to really stand out. And so too, and then there are Jews who maybe just go to synagogue on all the holidays, or there are Jews who just go to synagogue on the Sabbath, Christians who just go to church on Sunday, Muslims who only go to Juma on Friday, and then you have the people who are praying every day, Jews who go to Minyan every day, Christians who pray every day, or Catholic Christians go to Mass every day, Muslims who pray 5 times a day, maybe even pray in the mosque, whether it's 5 times a day or whenever they can, these type of things, or churches that have the Wednesday night Bible study, the people who go to the Bible study and so forth. Same thing, you read the Bible every day. Muslims, they read the Quran every day. Jewish people, are we studying every day as we're supposed to be, day and night, at least a little bit every morning, every night? These type of devotional experiences. In the reality, when you have a daily devotional life, it's something that goes with you all day. I remember reading, I think it was like The Joys of Yiddish. That's a very interesting book because it's not a religious book. It's almost an anti-religious book, The Joys of Yiddish. But you can learn so much about Judaism, and not only Jewish culture, but Jewish religion, from this rather almost almost anti-religious book. I know I myself, I learned quite a lot from this book when I was younger, and it's an interesting book. So I think it was Joys of Yiddish. It was one of these books where they said, you know, a person who davens 3 times a day, if he didn't put on tefillin, he didn't daven that day, he's going to be like a zombie all day. He's going to like feel nervous all day. Like until he davens, he's going to feel like he's missing something in his life. It's like he didn't put on underwear today. You know, like he's not wearing socks, not even wearing shoes. You know, like it's going to feel like totally weird until you daven. And you know, how is that? How do we and is that a good thing? I think it is, because it recognizes I think it's Reb Uri from Strelisk once said, Strelisk, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. He said that, you know, by the Hasidim, you see such a thing that sometimes they daven really late. And they say the morning prayers much later than they're supposed to, right? And even though it's a violation of certain legal matters, but the devotion of that is really quite interesting, because you're recognizing that God, you owe something to God, essentially, which is true 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We owe everything to God. But before we pray, we really feel like we owe something to God, as opposed to after we've already prayed, we kind of felt like, oh, we fulfilled our obligation. Which, on the other hand, that is spiritually and mentally healthy. I know my dear friend Reb Usher Meza, I don't think it's a secret anymore that he's a Ger Tzedek. He used to be a Baptist minister, and he practiced different types of Christianity, you know, throughout his life before coming to Torah. And Rabbi Meza says that when he was a Christian, he would fast, and he would pray for hours and days, trying. And it's interesting, because you would think, I mean, he's describing something very similar to what Martin Luther described in his devotional life, of how he felt that he was, you know, when he was still a Catholic priest, that he was not justified, and he was trying to find justification before such a holy God. And then he came to, in his theology, the recognition of Solo Fei, and you know, the 5 solos, solas, not solo. The solo, Han Solo. I didn't see the movie yet. I don't know if I'm going to or not. I kind of heard some things about that make me a little uncomfortable. I don't know, but the 5 solas of Protestantism is interesting, because Usher was, when he was George, he was Protestant, he was Baptist, he was Pentecostal, although their theologies might be a little different. But he described the same thing of like never feeling that he did enough. And then when he came to Torah, he said that he recognized that even though he never do it enough, but he knows he fulfilled his obligation for the day. He knows that he doesn't have to fast more than the fast that our rabbis and our Torah require. He knows he doesn't have to pray more than our rabbis required. He can if he wants to, but he doesn't have to. And he, honestly chooses not to do more than his obligation. Which is fine. Meaning he just, and he, through learning, discovered, how much do we actually have to say in our liturgy to actually fulfill our obligation. And it's not really as much as we typically say, particularly for the morning prayers. Now, I felt my soul brought me to the Hasidic devotions, which are more than is required. And I don't regret that. I don't regret taking on things that are above and beyond what's required. That's how that's my way, but I recognize that what works for me is not what works for him. What works for him is not what works for me. But I also recognize that the way he conducts himself is probably more essentially, like Rabbi Bart Sadok said in a video I was watching recently about Ikar Hadin, about what's the main halachic requirements versus the extraneous things which we are allowed to do but not required to do. The same thing when I saw Rabbi Bart Sadok, he was talking about the beard. He didn't even really mention the payas, the clothing and so forth. And he said that, if these don't make you more religious, these have nothing to do with religion, these are cultural. But that being said, if you're part of a particular culture, you don't go out of your way to stand out. I mean, the other day I was in Curious Joel, and I was kind of planning to go there, but yes or no, and I didn't bring my hat with me. I had a baseball cap, so I wore a baseball cap, but with a reckle, and with my payas down, and someone came up to me and like, oh, where are you from? What's your story? And I was kind of, that's not good. I was kind of bothered by it, but I asked for it by, and I was wearing a t-shirt, a reckle with a t-shirt, baseball cap, and I was just like, at least I'm showing a little bit of respect. If it was a black baseball cap that actually said, Hasidic Institute of Virginia, if anyone bothered to read what it said, and the t-shirt I was wearing actually said, another beautiful day in Curious Joel, New York. So, which I picked this up on eBay, and I thought it was kind of funny. So, but my reckle was closed, so no one could read the shirt. But and I wasn't wearing this more Bekisha. I was wearing also a chalat, Bekisha style chalat, like it's basically bathrobe, but with buttons and everything designed more like a regular Bekisha as opposed to, it's double arrested and whatever. But it has no lining and it has no shoulder pads, whatever. But it has the pockets in the back, whatever it is. I know I like this style very much, and as someone who professionally is a rabbi, it kind of goes with that. But can these things be made into devotions? Yes, but they are not actual devotions, meaning talis and tefillin are fulfilling mitzvahs. Maybe wearing these clothing fulfills the obligation of the mitzvah of not following in the ways of the Gentile. Many people argue, well, these are Gentile styles. They really aren't. They are pretty much original Jewish styles for the most part. And even they copy to a certain extent certain Gentile styles, but they modify them at the very least. I certainly do believe that the idea of wearing a long robe has more or less religious reason for it. It's tznius, it's more modest to wear something long. Not do I always do it, no. These are the types of questions, whether it's an obligation, like I know the Gerach Hasidim are very obsessed with tznius. Generally, a pious Gerach Chassid won't go on the street without a rekel on, and even to the point where they, like you see Balei Tshuva and by Gerach Hasidim, wear a bent-down hat with a rekel during the week, which is not a typical style. Like there are a lot of people, especially like in Flatbush or Far Rockaway or whatever, that they wear a bekasha on Shabbos with a bent-down hat and a short jacket during the week, and that's a pretty standard style, But the Gerach Hasidim, they'll tell their Balei Tshuva to wear rekel during the week for tznius purposes. Just an interesting thing. Kind of doesn't look that normal. Maybe for a rabbi, so it's like a rabbinical style, whatever. Let's move along back to what we were talking about with having daily devotions of davening, and how that is something that it transforms your whole day. I'll be honest, it really makes the whole day a different day. Now, like I said, if you didn't daven yet, it's like basically like you still have that Ol Malchut Shemayim over your head. You still have the yoke of the kingdom of heaven. Like, I have to do this. I have to daven until you daven. And so, like Grigori from Strelisk was like, that's a really important and strong thing, and we should feel that even after we daven. Kind of like how the Ber Maim Chaim once saw the Berditchever daven, and he got home and it was Shabbos. He got home and he didn't want to make kiddush. His wife said, "What's wrong? What, you didn't daven yet?" He's like, "Well, I said all the words, but can I say that I really davened after I saw the Berditchever daven? Can I really say that I really davened?" But on the other hand, all we are obligated to do is say the words by law. And so that's like how Rabbi Meza says, we fulfilled our legal obligation. We said the words. Hopefully at some point it's going to change our life. Like how we said the story with, I don't remember the rabbi's name, but it's the story Rabbi Arlovsky told with Ben Gurion, that there was a rabbi had to see Ben Gurion and it was almost Shkia, and so he quickly davened mincha in like 30 seconds, which for most people takes at least a minute or 2 minutes, It should take like 5 minutes, but and then Ben Gurion, who was of course very anti-religious, he was like, "Oh, you call that a mincha?" Like yeah, David Ben Gurion, you're the one to give Musar, And the rabbi's like, "No, I don't really call that a mincha, but if I do that 3 times a day, maybe at some point in my life, I will, I'll one time daven a real mincha." And the story goes that Ben Gurion said, maybe it's worth it to pray 3 times a day, that maybe one time you daven a real Shemona Esrei, Again, those are kind of low expectations. But the thing is like, do you really mean it? Like when you do have what you think is a really geschmack prayer, and you feel like, oh, I really prayed today, that could be a little level of gaiva. That could be already arrogance, which we don't want either. So how do you find that balance? Meaning, yeah, I said the prayers, it's probably better to feel a little guilty about not really having proper devotions than to feel all proud, like, look at me, look at this davening that I davened today. But on the other hand, if it's like, look at me, that's arrogant. But if it's like, thank you, God, for such a wonderful experience that I really enjoyed. Like Rabbi Victor Miller said, like he remembers in Lita, people like to say, oh, the Litvish, they're not really spiritual. It's not true. There's a lot of spirituality in Litvish Judaism. There's a lot of spirituality in Yekish Judaism. All these things, we think that spirituality is the realm of the Hasidim and the Sephardim, and it's not really true. You can find spirituality anywhere you look, and you can have a lack of spirituality in any place as well. I remember Moshe Weinberger used to say, if the Vilna Gaon was alive today, he'd feel a lot more comfortable in Williamsburg or Borough Park by the Hasidim than in Lakewood, or Flatbush with the literature. But then, because the Hasidim, their lifestyle and their way of dress and everything is much more similar to what the Vilna Gaon, how he lived his life, and but Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro Zolgazin saying from Bayswater, from Far Rockaway, he said that yes, if the Vilna Gaon was around today, he'd feel more comfortable by the Hasidim, and if the Baal Shem Tov was around today, he'd feel more comfortable around the literature. Because if you look at, you go daven, a weekday davening, not by a Rebbe, but by a regular Hasidic minyan, and the Rebbe's not there, right? And it's not like a minyan b'mesinas. It's not like a special minyan or it's not like a kolel minyan. It's a balabatish minyan. Davening goes very quick in a Hasidic shtibel, usually, for the most part, unless you go to somewhere where you specifically know that they're doing something special, Amunas Yisrael and Tolas Aaron. Even in Carl and Stolen, where they shout while the davening, it's a very it's not that long. It's fairly quick, But yeah, the same thing. You want to daven with the Vishnitzer Rebbe in Kaimisha Lake. You're going to be there for like 2 hours. But so like that's something probably the Baal Shem Tov would be comfortable with. But the regular Hasidic minyan, no. But the thing is the literature minyan. You go to Fallsburg. I went to Mariv once, and it was like Erev Pesach. The night of of the of the search of Bedikas Chametz, and I went to I figured, they're davening 10 minutes earlier in Fallsburg than they are in Gibbers, so I'll go daven in Fallsburg, Mariv, and Mariv took literally 45 minutes. Where most places, Mariv takes, 7 minutes. And so, like Rabbi Shapiro said, the Baal Shem Tov would probably feel more comfortable with the Litvische. They daven very slow, and so. But again, that's not all the Hasidim. It's, like I said, if you have a minyan, then it's a slow minyan. And you have a minyan, it's a fast minyan. People have to go to work. And everybody has, and the beautiful thing is, they're both 100% kosher. They're both saying the same things. Neither of them are skipping anything. It's just a question of, am I saying it slow? Am I saying it fast? Because what am I doing today? The fact of the matter that you went to shul at all. I remember Usher Wade, Tzolkas Inside, on a tape. I remember listening to him, and he was talking about davening every day, and he said, you go to some places, and it might take you 15-20 minutes to do a morning chakras, whereas a normal moderate pace, even a little quick pace, it usually takes like a half hour, 40 minutes, 45 minutes in the morning, and excuse me. So what are we talking about here with it? What's the deal with davening really fast like that? And the answer that Rusher Wade gives is that, you didn't have to do it. You didn't have to pray at all. You wouldn't have starved to death if you didn't pray. It's not like holding and going to the bathroom. It might feel like that if you're already developed into a pious Jewish lifestyle. It might feel like I didn't eat yet today. You're not going to eat before you pray for most places. It might feel like holding and going to the bathroom, or which is really uncomfortable, and you're not supposed to do according to Jewish law. It might feel like you didn't eat all day. It might feel like you went without sleep. It might feel like you didn't have a basic physical bodily function. But the truth is, all you're missing is a spiritual function, not a physical function. All you're missing. Meaning the point is that you're attuned to the importance of spirituality. You're attuned that your spiritual life is as important and perhaps more important than your physical, material life. The time when it can be dangerous is when you think erroneously that you need to do all the extra stuff. And the fact of the matter is, no, like our friend Rabbi Meza says, you don't need to do more than the basic obligations. You can do more. There's nothing wrong with doing more. But there is something wrong with being upset when you can't do more. When you don't have time to do more. And feeling like it's the same thing. You can't have like, oh, that's all I have. That's, find that balance, you know. Of recognizing what, you know, you can't do everything. Recognizing that, you know, you can't dance at two weddings. You have to find a way. There's tons of tzvei, you know. You have to find the balance. And that's also part of the beauty of the liturgical, devotional life. You know, there's a Mishnah in Yuma that says, you know, in the time of the temple, you couldn't see the service of the scapegoat and see the service of the Kohen Gadol in the Beis Hamikdash, the high priest in the temple. Not because you're not allowed to see both, but they're happening at the same time. And there's a big musar in that. There's a big musar haskell. There's a big ethical lesson in that sometimes you have to make choices. You have to have priority, and you can't dance at two weddings. You know, that's what that Mishnah is teaching us. So you know, that's why first of all it's important to pick one religion. You know, I'm not being negative against the Baha'i faith, but you know, there's a certain spiritual health in just having one religion. Besides the just common sense of, you know, in general, especially in the Western, you know, Abrahamic tradition, you can't really have more than one religion. You know, there are people who try to do it, but it doesn't work and it's wrong. You know, and I know people who tried it in the past and are still suffering from that today. You know, they're treated different because at some point in their past they dabbled in this and they recognize that it's wrong and they've repented from it, but they're still kind of paying for it. But that's more of a societal construct as opposed to a spiritual construct. But spiritually speaking, you can't dance at two weddings. You can't be everything. You can know about other things and you can respect and you know, and share other things, but you can't be everything. You know, I remember I went on a trip with my family up to the Finger Lakes, and I had a wedding to perform there. It was at the cemetery, the wedding, and in the cemetery is where William Seward is buried and Harriet Tubman is buried. And then from there, we visited a few other places. I made a video discussing this trip. It was a wonderful, wonderful trip. We saw the birthplace of Millard Fillmore, and I took a video there. And there were two museums that we visited. One was in Seneca Falls, the Women's Rights Museum, Women's Museum. And one was in Hill Cumorah, I don't remember the name of the town, the Mormon Museum, where the Mormon Church was founded. And I was telling this over to somebody who wasn't Jewish, and I was telling about, and I said, you know, just because I went to this Mormon museum, you should know I'm not a Mormon. And she's like, yeah, that's okay, you're not a woman either. But you went to the Women's Museum, right? So you can go to the museum. All right, you want to ask, halachically, is it proper to visit a place like a Mormon museum? Maybe yes, maybe no. My wife, who grew up Mormon, was very curious to see this place, and then when she walked in, she felt very uncomfortable. She's like, we gotta leave. You know, and she said, you know, it's like seeing an old boyfriend, you know, that you don't want to see. And you know, like, you know, you're at and it's just so uncomfortable, you know, and now you're happily married, and then you see this person you had a relationship with a long time ago, you just happen to walk into them in Walmart or something, and like, you just don't want to. You just want to avoid them, and it's like that's what. So like I said, you can't dance at two weddings. But here, like me, my job right now is to assist in the religious practices of other faiths. So yesterday, I wasn't participating in the other faiths. Sometimes I might observe them out of curiosity, but yesterday it was more or less not functional. What's the word I'm trying to think of? Utilitarian. I don't know. Like I had to observe. I had to be there for. It was Memorial Day yesterday, so I was the only chaplain on duty. I had taken off on Shavuos. I had to make up the day I missed, and so I wanted to work on Memorial Day, not as a disrespect for Memorial Day. I have a lot of respect for Memorial Day, but I felt that my work was a work of service. Working in corrections, technically, according to the state where I'm working, I'm not going to say which state it is, although people probably know, they consider it to be like a paramilitary position to be involved in corrections. So and so too really all of the civil holidays, which I have respect for. On the other hand, I still feel that it's proper for me to participate and to serve. Even though it's not the state where I live, it's a neighboring state. But we're all 50 states in the same country. And to serve. So I was there. So we had a Native American service and a Muslim service for Ramadan. And I was too busy with security issues and paperwork issues. The Native American service, I didn't want to shut the door because maybe other guys were coming in, coming out. So I had to just stay by the door of the chapel, and they were outside doing their thing. And sometimes when they do the service, I'll sit there and observe it and watch it. Just out of curiosity, and it's interesting, And then the Muslim service just went by so quickly, and I had to be dealing with taking attendance, and you had 100 guys coming to pray Maghrib and to break the fast for Ramadan, and so I had to just take attendance and make sure everybody was where they're supposed to be for security reasons. So it was certainly an act of service. It wasn't a spiritual pursuit. It was doing my job. But in a way, it's still working is also a religious devotion. So we didn't get that much into what the devotions were about. I'm almost here at work. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. But we did talk about this idea, and I think we brought out some really interesting ideas in this video. Thank you for watching. I want to thank God for all the technology and all the things, but even without the technology, there's all kinds of wonderful things that